In this video, we're going to be looking at the information that's on pages Excel 28 and 29, which is entitled Inserting a Function. Functions are predefined worksheet formulas that enable you to perform complex calculations easy. You can use the Insert Functions button on the formula bar to choose a function from a dialog box. In addition to using the AutoSum button on the ribbon to quickly insert the sum function, you can click the AutoSum button list arrow to enter other frequently used functions, such as average. Functions are organized into categories such as financial, date and time, statistical, and pretty much they're based on what their purpose is. You can insert a function on its own or as part of another formula. For an example, if you have used the sum function on its own to add a range of cells, you could also use the sum function within that formula or within a formula to add a range of cells and then multiply that total by a decimal. If you use the function alone, it always begins with the formula prefix, which is the equal sign. So let's take a look on step 1 on page Excel 28, and that tells us that we're going to click on cell B15. So you can probably guess that from earlier when we had to take a look at a 20% rise, this time we're going to be taking a look at averages. Now this is a cell where we want to enter the calculation that averages the revenue for the first quarter. And you want to use the Insert Function dialog box to enter this function. And to do that, we take a look at step 2. And step 2 on there tells us that we're going to click on the Insert Function button, which is the FX button here. So if we click on that, notice that it's going to automatically start off with an equal sign. Of course, as well, when you're using the Insert Function button or the AutoSum button list arrow, it's not necessary to type the equal sign because notice here, it's already appeared. And of course, in this dialog box that we see on here, this is where you can specify the function that you want to add by clicking it in the Select a Function list. The Select a Function list initially displays recently used functions. If you don't see the function you want, or you can click on the or select a category list arrow to choose the desired category. So this is where we can see most recently used, and if you want to choose other ones, you can choose those as well. I said if you're not sure what category to choose, you can type the function name or a description in the search for a function field, and that would be right up here. So if you know what you want but don't know what the function's called, you can just start typing a description of what you want it to do. The average function is a statistical function, but you don't need to open the statistical category because this function appears in the most recently used list. Now step 3 tells us that we do want to click on average, and that's if necessary. If another one's above it or another one's highlighted, just click on the one that says average. And then it tells us to read the information that appears under the list, and then finally click on OK. And notice that right here it tells us that average, then of course you have number 1, number 2, and so forth, and it's going to return the average or arithmetic mean of its arguments, which can be numbers or names, arrays, or references that contain numbers. And it's important to understand that that is exactly what you want it to do on there. Now of course remember that arguments are going to be the numbers that allows the function to occur. And that could be a range, that could be just a series of numbers, whatever it is on there. But we're going to go ahead and click on OK. And then notice that this will take us to another dialog box, which is the function's arguments. And the first thing we want to do is we want to click on the collapse button in the number 1 field of the function arguments dialog box. So we want to click on this button right here, and that is the collapse button. And notice that our dialog box is still here, but most of it has been collapsed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our pointer to select the range B4 to B11. Now make sure you don't include the total because then that's going to throw off the average on there. We just want to choose B4 to B11, and you should see that in the function arguments dialog box. Once you have it selected, you can release your mouse button, and then we can click on the expand button, and that brings back up to the full function arguments dialog box. And the reason that we click the collapse button is because it's going to minimize the dialog box so you can select the cells in the worksheet. When you click the expand button, that means the dialog box is going to be restored. You can also begin dragging in the worksheet to automatically minimize the dialog box after you have selected the desired range, and then the dialog box will automatically be restored. Step 5 tells us we're going to click on OK. Now, a great thing to notice here as well is that it's automatically going to give you the answer right here, so you can kind of judge and see if that answer is roughly what you're looking at. But when we click on OK, the dialog box is going to close, and the calculated value displays now in cell C15. And so the average revenue per country for quarter 1 should be $40,221.0775. Now next, what we're going to do is we're going to click on cell C15, and we're going to do this in a little bit of a different way. It's first of all wants us to click on the AutoSum list arrow. So it's the AutoSum button list arrow. So here we have AutoSum up here. If we click on the arrow next to it, notice that we have the sum, average, count numbers, max, and min on there. We want to click on average. Now notice that it goes ahead and gives us our function that we're looking at, equals average, and then it has a cell already selected that's on there. Now of course a screen tip may appear on there beneath the cell C15, which you see on here where it says average number 1, number 2 on there, and that displays the arguments that's needed to complete the function. The text number 1 is shown in a boldface type, telling you that it's the next step to supply the first cell in the group you want to average. And of course, in this case, we want to average a range of cells. And to do that, we're going to click up here on cells, and this is step 6. We're going to click on cell C15. I'm sorry. We're going to click on cell C4, and we're going to select the range C4 to C11. Once we have that, we're going to click on enter, and this will give us the result of averaging out the cell C4 to C11. Now next on there, we're going to fill this in. So on step 8, it tells us that we're going to select cell C15 and go over to E15. And we're going to click on our fill button up here in the editing group, and we're going to fill this to the right. So now we've calculated up a 20% rise and the average of all these numbers. So step 9 tells us that we need to save our work. Now once again, this is showing you the power of Excel, because you could have done these very easily by grabbing a calculator and inputting in the information into the calculator. However, we haven't had to do one single calculation. All we've had to do is use either a complex formula, which we did up here, or insert in a function such as this. It is an incredible time saver to use Microsoft Excel. Well, that concludes the information for inserting a function, Excel 28 and 29. On the next one on there, we're going to be typing in functions. So you're ready to move on to video 3. Just make sure that you save your work.